I don't know about you, but while growing up as a rock metal guitar player, when it came to the different pickup positions of your guitar, it was pretty much straightforward. The bridge position would be for you to play your fiery riffs with a lot of distortion and be aggressive. Your neck pickup would be to do the more juicy leady parts, and the middle position would be to play those more intricate, clean riffs that want a little bit more spark. And for years, that was the only way I used the pickup selector. But as you mature as a guitar player, you end up figuring out that things aren't just quite as bland and black and white as you make them seem. You can actually have clean and intricate parts played on the neck position or even in the bridge position, depending of course on the vibe you're looking for, how much sparkle and grit you want to your sound. And the same thing with the middle positions. They're not just to do the clean or quacky parts, you can actually do solos with it like the country and bluesy guitar players do very often. Even in your rock and metal songs, it might give you a different vibe that perhaps isn't just the standard vibe that everyone always goes for. But when it came to the neck pickup, that one always stayed a little bit more simple. It was kind of always the more juicier sounding position for your solo playing. Sure, you can look at Jimi Henriques or even Rage Against the Machine, where they use that more single coil-ish neck pickup sound to do riffs on it. And again, it works on a more bluesier context, but when it came to a more rock context, I didn't really appreciate the neck pickup sound for that. Especially when it came to humbucker. For me, most neck humbuckers end up being a little bit too thick and muddy for rhythm and riff playing, instead of single coils, which are actually the type of pickup that I prefer, where you can achieve a little bit more clarity, just because of these being pickups with a little bit more sparkle and high end, which again do give you a little bit more clarity. But it all changed with this guitar player that I've mentioned in plenty of videos as him being a huge influence of mine, who I saw playing riffs with the neck pickup, both with single coils and humbuckers, and not really changing the tone of the amplifier too much, and having these riffs with a thick and rich sound that still had the clarity and had a completely different vibe than playing them on the bridge pickup, even if you use some sort of fuzzier sound to get those richer sounds. And some of you might have even guessed I'm talking about Greg Koch. I'm not going to bore you by simping on Greg Koch again, because I have plenty of other videos that you can go check out, but I'll just say that even though I love his lead work, because I love myself some blues and country inspired guitar playing, I was much more inspired by his songwriting, chord playing, and riff playing than I was by his lead playing. And I highly suggest you go check out all of his solo work. My favorite song would probably be Rex Charmer, both the acoustic version and the electric version, but his work with the Koch Marshall Trio is also amazing, and he really uses all the sounds of his guitar, not only with the pickup positions, but also with the tone and volume knobs. And I was particularly influenced by him when I was working on this riff, which is the main riff of my latest release song, Fossil, which if you haven't, you can and should go check out anywhere you listen to your music at. I'm moving through these different chord shapes and trying to add melodies to it, and the whole riff does have a more bluesy, soul-y, jazzy vibe to it, which again, I wonder who I was influenced by. While I still think the riff sounded amazing on the bridge pickup, not only as an attempt to not just do the same thing over and over again, but also as a way to force me to do that neck pickup riff tone that I do think is cool, but I just found unusable for the most part. I ended up taking that riff and, through the consequence of it, the whole song Fossil, and tried to achieve these more bluesier and dirtier tones on the neck pickup, but even later on the bridge pickup and middle positions, and get this woodier and more organic sound. Are you more of a neck pickup guitar player or a bridge pickup guitar player? Do you find yourself playing riffs on the neck position very often? Let me know. And while you're at it, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow and stay tuned for more, because I'm releasing new songs every week, and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day. If you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll like the other ones too, so perhaps even share them with a friend who might also enjoy them. In case it wasn't obvious already, go check out my latest release song, Fossil, anywhere you listen to your music at, and I want to once again thank all of you guys so much for all the support in these songs and videos. I can only thank you guys so much, but it really means a lot and it really makes a difference. I can only hope to see you in another video, but until then, cheers! You kind of have to repeat your riffs and melodies a little bit in order to make it so that the listener truly connects with your song and riffs. But just because you have to at least sometimes repeat those riffs and melodies throughout the song, it doesn't mean that you can change them at least a little bit so that you don't take the essence out of the riff and you don't take the vibe out of the riff, but every time it comes along, it becomes a little bit more interesting. Like in the case of my latest release song, Fossil, which if you haven't, you can and should go check out anywhere you listen to your music at. I was working on this main riff of the song, and I figured out this little break, I guess, in the melody where you do a more scalar run to make it a little bit more intense to get to the next section of the song, or to repeat the riff depending on where you're at. And while I was sketching down my ideas for the song and for the whole riff, this was my first idea, which shows up in the first repetition of the riff. Which, like all things, are debatable, but I think sounded pretty cool. And as I kept developing the rest of the song and all the other riffs and melodies, I was pretty sure this would be like the main riff of the song, and I would then have to figure out other riffs to be the verse riff and the chorus riff, so I worked around trying to figure out those, and when I was assembling everything together, the next time I played the main riff, I don't know if I was distracted or got the riff wrong, or maybe it was just some sort of divine Cthulhu-ish intervention. I played the riff exactly the same, but when it came to that little scalar run, I kinda stretched it a little bit out. Which again, isn't really anything fancy, and if you look at it, it's kind of like a typical guitar player shape thing to do, because on the first run, you're just going over the same frets on the 4th and 3rd strings, which are notes that belong to the scale of F sharp minor, where this riff takes place in the key of. And on the next repetition, we start out again on the 4th and 3rd strings, but we move to the 2nd string as well, which gives us again notes of the F sharp harmonic minor, and that harmonic minor note makes sense because we're over the chord of C sharp 7. And yeah, in this case, it is a typical guitar player thing to do, where you just move it a string down and you feel like it sounds kind of cool, so you just keep it up. In the second time that we play the riff, the listener is already used to that melody and riff because they've heard it before, and in this way you even subvert their expectations a little bit, because even if only subconsciously they're just expecting to hear the first version, but you then throw a little bit of extra spice in there. And I think that makes the listener more engaged with your song and a little bit more interested in it. And looking at the whole song, I played the riff in 2.5 different ways, but you can go even further and change the riff either slightly or perhaps in more obvious ways every single time you play it if you want to, but the more you do it and the more you change it, the less the listener might connect to it. Oh, and I said 2.5 different ways because on the 3rd repetition of the riff, I just do the same variation of the scale run where I go to the 2nd string, but I kind of change the orchestration of the other instruments to make it feel a little bit more intense, so the notes are still the same, it's just the rest of the song that changes around it. Which sounds like this, but you should probably listen to the whole song to really feel the vibes and connect to the riffs as the song goes on. In case it wasn't obvious already, go check out my latest release song, Fossil, anywhere you listen to your music at, and don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow and stay tuned for more because I'm releasing new songs every week and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day. If you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll like the other ones too, so perhaps even share them with a friend who might also enjoy them. I want to once again take the time to thank you guys so much for all the support in these songs and videos. I can only thank you guys so much, but it really means a lot and it really makes a difference. I can only hope to see you in another video, but until then, cheers! I was working around with this riff in the key of F sharp minor, but I knew I wanted to move from that main riff to this other riff that I thought would do good as a verse riff, but that riff really sounded better in the key of C sharp minor than staying in F sharp minor. And since the chord C sharp minor is a chord that you can find both in the key of F sharp minor and C sharp minor, by ending my main riff in a C sharp minor chord, it then left me in a cool way where I can just pick it up again in that chord, but seamlessly transition into a different key where I move to a new section. Here's the example of what I'm talking about. These are, by the way, riffs of my latest release song, Fossil, which if you haven't, you can and should go check out anywhere you listen to your music at. And yeah, I indeed do this weird rhythm, and I do add these extensions to the C# minor chord, where I'm doing a regular C# minor chord, a C# minor 6, a C# minor 7, then a C# minor major 7, but deep down, those are all just C# minor. And at least in my opinion, it sounded cool, gave me the vibe that I was looking for, and like I mentioned before, led me to the different riff/section that I was wanting to do. But later on in the song, I'm doing the same main riff, and at the end of it, I wanted to move to a different riff that actually stayed in the key of F# minor rather than moving into a different key. And I kind of didn't want to change my main riff too much, so what I decided to do was when I got to that section at the end with the C# minor chord, I would do the exact same thing with the same shape, but instead of doing a C# minor chord, I would do a C# major chord, because that C# major chord would then resolve itself way better to F# minor than a regular C# minor would. And it isn't really that big of a change because, again, the notes of C# minor to the chord of C# major are pretty much the same, just that E switches into an E sharp, which, again, I know that E sharp doesn't exist, would be an F, but in this case, functionally, it's an E sharp, but let's not really talk about that too much. It's just really that one note that changes, but because all the other extensions sound completely different over a minor chord than you do a major chord, while you listen to this new section, it kind of gives you a familiar and similar vibe as you did before, which gives this song a little bit more cohesion than just throwing riffs into it, but it also sparks a different vibe in you because, again, they are different chords. And I actually ended up doing a similar thing with other riffs in the song and different song sections. Like there's this riff that I start the song in that is in the key of F# minor, and that riff goes over a bunch of chords, but it usually finishes over a C# major chord so that it resolves itself back to F# minor. But I use that riff in different sections of the song, and there's even a section where I'm going through that F# minor riff back to the verse riff in C# minor. And in that one, I actually switch up the order of the chords in there so that instead of finishing in the C# major chord, I actually finish in a B major chord, so I resolve from B major to C# minor. And I know that this might be a little bit too heavy on music theory for some of you, but I'm mostly sharing this to give you a different perspective of next time you're trying to work on a riff and you think it sounds cool, but you kind of want it to have a different function within the song, you can maybe change it not too much and still have it accomplish whatever you're trying to do, and who knows, perhaps you even get a whole different vibe that you weren't expecting just from slightly modifying that riff, or, like I mentioned before, if that is the opposite that you want to do, using the same technique, you can keep the riff basically mostly the same, but still accomplish whatever your goals are to transition into a new section, or a different key, or whatever vibe you're trying to achieve. Let me know if this is something you do often, and while you're at it, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow and stay tuned for more because I'm releasing new songs every week, and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day. If you've enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll like the other ones too, so perhaps even share them with a friend who might also enjoy them. In case it wasn't obvious already, go check out my latest release song, Fossil, anywhere you listen to your music at, and I want to once again take the time to thank you guys so much for all the support in these songs and videos. I can only thank you guys so much, but it really means a lot and it really makes a difference. I can only hope to see you in another video, but until then, cheers! I've talked before on how you can use themes and leitmotifs on your songs, kind of like they do in movies, musicals, and operas, where you associate a specific melody or rhythm or vibe to either a specific character, feeling, or again, just a vibe. And while listening to it throughout the whole piece, or maybe while watching the movie, you do get that feeling of cohesion within the whole thing because you've heard that melody before, but in different contexts. Especially when you also take those melodies and themes and you rearrange them to fit the mood of whatever scene you're accompanying, or whatever your character is going through, or how they're referencing said character. And sure, it might sound weird to just do that in your regular day-to-day songs, but the truth is, it actually works pretty well. I have a whole other video where I talk about how you can implement that with your chord playing or your riffs and melodies, but you can also do that with your guitar solos. And yeah, I guess I am saying guitar solos in plural, even though most songs nowadays don't even have guitar solos, and when you think of more classic and legendary songs, most of them have like one guitar solo, if even that. And while I am an advocate that not every single song needs a guitar solo, especially as someone who does instrumental progressive guitar-based music, when you're doing your own song and you have multiple guitar solos, or maybe you have a section where the guitar plays the melody and later on you have that solo, you can apply this same concept not only to give your song, like I mentioned before, a sense of cohesion, but it also might spark some feelings on the listener, like maybe nostalgia because they've heard that before, they might not just recognize it, or maybe even the same lick or phrase over different chords can spark different vibes that will again influence the listener in different ways. It can also elevate just any random guitar solo into something that is a little bit more polished, giving it the vibe of something more thought out and composed, even if you're just improvising the solos for the most part. And a great example of that would be my latest release song Fossil, which if you haven't, you can and should go check out anywhere you listen to your music at. Closer to the end of the song, I was doing this guitar solo that was over the chords of the main melody slash riff of the song. And I wasn't just trying to do random shred, I was actually trying to outline those chord progressions, and while improvising and trying to figure out something that was a little bit shreddy and intense, but also at least pretty melodic, I came across this section over here. Which features for the most part pretty diatonic chords. We're in the key of A major or F sharp minor, and that section of the song is going over the chords F sharp minor, D, E, C sharp or C sharp 7, and going back to the F sharp minor. And even though I don't think I was consciously thinking of it, that lick is just pretty much outlining the triads of those chords in these kind of like caged-ish position shapes, but I wasn't really thinking of the cage system. But think of it like that if it helps you figure out the section better. Using this shape for the F sharp minor chord, this one for the D, which are pretty similar. Just move that C sharp on the 6th fret of the 3rd string, a half step up, and you make it a D chord. After the D chord, we move to E, so we can just take this whole shape a whole step up. And again, while looking at this shape for the E chord, if we take that E over there and we make it an E sharp, which I know doesn't make a lot of sense, but trust me, it is what it is. We get that C sharp 7 chord position. And going back to F sharp from that, and like I mentioned before, this was just a random lick that I played over that solo while I was kind of improvising around. But later on in the songs, I was also jamming some solo section bits over the chords of the chorus. There is this section where we're not starting on the F sharp minor chord, but we're once again doing D, E, and C sharp 7, resolving back to the F sharp minor. And I was once again just improvising the solos of that part, and when it got to outlining those chords, I genuinely didn't even think about it and just played the exact same lick, probably because not a lot of minutes earlier I played the exact same lick over a different solo, and only really thought about it when I came to listen back to the whole song, and I was like, wait, I've heard this lick before, where have I heard it? And yeah, it turned out that my brain just used it in both solos. Now, I know what you're thinking, it might be a little bit boring that you don't really have a lot of different solo sections, and when you do, you kind of just play the same thing over and over again. But like I said before, that's not really the way to think about it. You're not playing the same lick over and over again, you're just applying a different melody over different contexts, because like I said, even though it's the same lick over the same chords, because one is within the context of the chorus, and the other one is within the context of the main riff, and they both lead to different parts. It definitely gives out a different vibe that even if you're just improvising your solos and you don't really have time to think of all those things through, because whatever comes up in the moment comes up in the moment for a later section and nothing's coming out, so maybe you compose your solos a little bit more, here's perhaps something a little bit different that you can try. In case it wasn't obvious already, go check out my latest release song, Fossil, anywhere you listen to your music at, and don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow and stay tuned for more because I'm releasing new songs every week and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day. If you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll like the other ones too, so perhaps even share it with a friend who might also enjoy it. I want to take the time to once again thank all of you guys for all the support in these songs and videos. I can only thank you guys so much, but it really means a lot and it really makes a difference. And yeah, I can only hope to see you in another video, but until then, cheers! Let me know if I'm wrong, but after a while of playing the guitar, you start hearing these names like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani, and how they are guitar legends and have playing styles like no one else has, and how they and their guitars have been huge influence to this whole spectrum of guitar players in different genres and vibes. And if you're any bit like me, you are then curious to go check them out, and you're surprised to find that Joe Satriani is really cool, has a really interesting playing style with cool melodies and cool songs, interesting riffs, but then maybe Steve Vai is a little bit more prog and esoteric than you were thinking of. Obviously you think he plays amazingly and he has some great chops and licks, but again, let me know if it's just me, but you connect way more to Satriani than you do to Vai. But then as time goes on and you explore different genres, technique, you then start to respect Vai way more than you ever did. Well, again, maybe I'm just talking about myself, but I kind of want to know if you guys agree as well. Steve definitely isn't your average guitar player. He has his own genre of vibes and has all these skills with orchestration, instrumentation, production, and overall just vibes, not only with the way he chooses to present himself, the tones he gets, and all the different experimentation he does, which is definitely a more progressive thing. And yeah, not everyone is into the more progressive type of music, but it led me to, over the years, feel like Steve Vai may not have been the more influential to me out of him and Joe Satriani, but even on like this philosophical, spiritual level, I have a huge respect for Steve Vai, and he certainly has become a role model and inspiration over the years. Now with that being said, I'm going to have a hot take, and I'm going to say that Steve Vai is amazing and probably more recognized for his bits of more lyrical, melodic, and even lyrical guitar playing. Even though I appreciate his lead work, his rhythm work is the one that I actually really enjoy, specifically referring to his riffs. And since we didn't have enough hot takes so far, let's go with another one. Even though songs like For the Love of God, Tender Surrender, Bad Horsey are clearly amazing songs, my favorite Steve Vai song is Gravity Storm. That thick and chunky riff that has all these bendy, swirly notes to it, yet it is still mostly pentatonic based, is definitely on my list of top 10 riffs. And maybe I'm wrong, but I would guess most people don't even know the song Gravity Storm because it isn't really one of his more popular albums. I remember watching this video, I think it's on the Guitar World channel, but he played that riff for Gravity Storm, and again, it's a pretty old video, so it was around the phase where I just thought Steve Vai was just kind of meh, not for me. But he played that riff and I was just hooked. I thought that riff sounded amazing. And I then started to mess around with trying to make my own riffs like that, but I was just really feeding off the vibe of it too much and ended up not really getting anywhere. So I never really thought much about it until years on, I saw this video on the Jam Track Central YouTube channel of Jess Lewis playing this cover of a song called Fierce, and I think I'm going to butcher the name, but Jan Circa, which just like any of the other videos and references I've made throughout the video, you should go check out. And in that song, she's jamming over these cool riffs that kind of just get transposed over different keys, and they are kind of more like pentatonic based riffs with more pentatonic based soloing, but with all the key changes and interesting chords, it really gives it an interesting vibe. And people in the comments were just saying that it had a lot of Steve Vai vibes, which left me even more interested, because again, I kind of thought of Steve Vai as just a dude with the For the Love of God type of playing, which again is amazing, but just wasn't my thing at a time. And it was really influential to me because over the years, I really found myself being like, damn, I really gotta do something that sounds like that. But I just never really found a cool riff to use it in. Until a couple of years on, I was just messing around with power chords in the key of F sharp minor, trying to do some different variations of double stops and keeping different strings open while making it kind of bluesy, like it's part major, part minor, but then it has some different chords to it. But I didn't really connect it to any of the other influences until it came to my latest release song, Fossil, which if you haven't, you can and should go check out anywhere to listen to your music at, where near the end of the song, I knew I wanted to do a pseudo breakdown-ish section, and I wasn't really quite sure of what to do because the song sounds a little bit more bluesy and traditional than some of my other more hard rock and metal-ish songs. And because the song fluctuates between being in F sharp minor and C sharp minor, just through that connection, I thought to myself, why not use that power chord based F sharp minor riff that I keep working on but still don't have a home for. And as I then recorded it in the context of it being after all the other riffs of the song, it then clicked in my head, what if I do that Steve Vai and Jess Lewis thing that I've loved over the years, where I do these more pentatonic, heavy, thicky riffs and have it switch key change and have these interesting soloing, but also kind of shreddy soloing bits. If I then tried to do that and figured out some different variations, different keys where I thought the riff worked better in, I just thought it sounded super cool, added a different dimension to the song than it just being a purely bluesy and portal melodic guitar playing song, and it finally scratched that itch of me wanting to do something that sounded like those Steve Vai and Jess Lewis videos that I grew up with. I'll leave a clip of the solo here, but I really encourage you guys to go check out the whole thing because again, it really has a different vibe while listening through the whole song. In case it wasn't obvious already, go check out my latest release song, Fossil, anywhere you listen to your music at. And don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow and stay tuned for more because I'm releasing new songs every week and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day. If you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll like the other ones too, and perhaps even share them with a friend who might also enjoy them. I want to once again take the time to thank you guys for all the support in these songs and videos. It really means a lot and it really makes a difference. I can only hope to see you in another video, but until then, cheers! I've released a song called Fossil, which if you haven't, you can and should go check out anywhere you listen to your music at, and even a full music video / full playthrough that you can go check out. Your support in these songs and videos has been amazing, and I can only thank you guys so much, but it really means a lot and it really makes a difference. I can only wish to see you in another video, but until then, I hope you leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow and stay tuned for more because I'm releasing new songs every week and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day. If you've enjoyed any of the videos, I'm sure you'll enjoy the other ones too, and while you're at it, maybe you can even share them with a friend who might also enjoy them. Thank you again if you've watched this far, and yeah, cheers!